Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Booth, along with Jason Chaffetz, Tomi Lahren, and Joe Concha, and welcome to the Big Weekend Show. The big story tonight. Articles of impeachment revealed against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
The border is closed. The border is secure.
It is my testimony that the border is secure.
But you do think it's a crisis now?
Brett, it is a challenge.
Well, that insistence is just one reason the House argues Mayorkas is putting our national security at risk. Fox News correspondent Lucas Tomlinson is live to break down the details of the two articles of impeachment. Lucas.
Well, Lisa, a Republican member of the House Homeland Security Committee spoke on Fox and Friends earlier about those impeachment articles and that testimony you heard earlier from the DHS chief.
The articles are very simple. Article 1 says that there's a willful and systemic refusal to follow the law. That's the Immigration and Nationality Act. And Article 2 says that there's a breach of public trust, what you just heard. Those two are very simple, but they factually outline the refusal of Secretary Mayorkas to keep our country safe.
Now, here's the text, Lisa. Alejandro N. Mayorkas knowingly made false statements to Congress that the border is secure, that the border is, quote, no less secure than it was previously, and that the border is, quote, closed, and that DHS has, quote, operational control of the border. The text continues. Throughout his tenure as Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro N. Mayorkas has repeatedly violated laws enacted by Congress regarding immigration and border security. In large part because of his unlawful conduct, millions of aliens have illegally entered the United States on an annual basis, with many unlawfully remaining in the United States. His refusal to obey the law is not only an offense against the separation of powers and the Constitution of the United States, it also threatens our national security. Now, here's the response from DHS to all this. It says, quote, this farce of an impeachment is a distraction from other vital national security priorities and the work Congress should be doing to actually fix our broken immigration laws. Now, many Republican congressmen say the southern border should be the top national security priority. Here's House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Mike McCall earlier on Fox News Sunday.
He knows better. This is not by accident, it's by design. And I call him the architect of destruction. 8 million encounters, 300 on the terror watch list, 200 million people dead now thanks to fentanyl poisoning that this one man is responsible for. I think that is a dereliction of duty.
Now, Lisa, a cabinet member has only been impeached one time in the history of the United States, and that happened nearly 150 years ago. Lisa?
We'll see if it happens again. Lucas, thank you. All right, Jason, so two articles we've got here: refusal to follow the law, breach of public trust. Are these articles of impeachment justified? And then what's the process of this? What are the next steps?
I've read through the 20 pages of the articles of impeachment. They are justified. The secretary has not enforced the current law. He's made excuses. He's made representations to Congress that are false, that are absolute total lies. You can look at all the numbers, and probably one of the best witnesses that you'll have will be somebody like a Brandon Judd, who's in charge of the Border Patrol Union. Talk to the Border Patrol agents. They're not allowed to enforce the current law. Yeah, there were a lot of other things like the whipping incident with the horses that was totally false. But what about the tens of thousands of unaccompanied minors that were released into the country? He made representations about that. That's also in the articles, talking about how that is a dereliction of duty. So he's lost the public trust. Congress, the United States Senate, has a co-equal vote in how they approve that person to be in that role. And as Edwin Meese has written in the past, Congress, the Senate, has a co-equal voice to get rid of that person. And I think he's earned this, unfortunately. It's not going to change unless they get rid of that person who is not enforcing the current law.
Well, and they'll have a tough time in the Senate as well, obviously. All right, Tomi, let's listen to Congresswoman Lee Stefanik, a House Republican Conference Chair.
We are holding the Biden administration and Joe Biden accountable for the catastrophe at our southern border. Has been a willful and refusal to comply with the law and an abuse of power in the position as Secretary of Homeland Security. Every state is a border state, so the committee will mark up those articles of impeachment and work through the process to bring them to the floor. And I think what's most telling is Democrats are refusing to hold Joe Biden accountable for this border crisis that Joe Biden and his cabinet have created.
So you heard it right there. Democrats refusing to hold Joe Biden accountable. How's that going to play out politically?
But let's be fair. Also, some Republicans that are refusing to hold Joe Biden accountable. It feels like we're listening to this on a loop for the last 3 years. Republicans saying that the border is a problem, the border needs to be closed, the laws need to be enforced. Everybody is, giving us a dereliction of duty. We hear this over and over and over again like a broken record, and I love to hear Republicans say it. But it took this long, first of all, for this impeachment, the inquiry to even come up when it comes to Mayorkas. That's been promised for many, many months now. But I think the American people are also sick of Republicans in Congress talking about this. It doesn't seem like they actually have the will or the votes or the support within themselves to get it done. And then you look at Texas, which is actually out there making a change, making a difference, holding the line. So I think more Americans are looking at Governor Greg Abbott and saying we need maybe 50 more Greg Abbotts out there, and then we could get something done. But I'm not going to hold my breath. It's great that we have this. It's nice to see some movement. Is it going to go across the finish line? I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of optimism there. A lot of Americans don't.
Well, Joe, Tommy was talking about how Republicans are even at odds on this issue as well. I want to play this clip of just that. I want to play this clip of Senator Rick Scott as well as Lankford, who are on opposite sides of this. Let's take a listen.
This bill focuses on getting us to 0 illegal crossings a day. There's no amnesty. This is not about letting 5,000 people in a day. This is the most misunderstood section of this proposal.
We could change all these laws. There's laws now. Trump secured the border. Biden decided to open the border on the exact same laws. We don't need a new bill. We need something to force Biden to comply with the law.
So you've got Republicans at odds with each other in the backdrop of this impeachment as well. And then you've got the media coming to the defense of Democrats on top of it. The Washington Post said this. It says House GOP unveils Mayorkas impeachment articles despite lack of evidence, despite 20 pages of it laid out from Republicans. Yeah. So, what's it going to take for the media to finally take this border crisis seriously?
Wow. I think you'll see the Cowboys in the Super Bowl before you see the media actually report on this honestly, right? 10,000 people a day in December crossed into this country illegally. 300,000 in a month. All right. So what more evidence do you need that when Mayorkas says the border is closed and then 300,000 people are coming in a month, more than 9 million since this president took office, it's not going to be reported on honestly. And then even if we go from 10,000 a day to 5,000 a day, you know what Biden and the media are going to do. We have cut down border crossings by more than 50%, just like they did with inflation. Alejandro Mayorkas is a useful or useless idiot. You could remove him. It doesn't matter because another Mayorkas will just be put in there. As long as Joe Biden is president and as long as wall construction is not restarted and Remain in Mexico is not reinstated and catch and release is not eliminated, this problem will continue forever. My question for Jason, real quick, if you don't mind. Do they have the numbers to remove Mayorkas, or is it just impeachment and then, oh, well, we couldn't actually get him out of there?
Well, I am worried, talking to my former House colleagues, that the Republicans don't, they can only give up 3 votes or so. Right. They don't necessarily have the numbers to actually impeach him. Should they go through this process? Yes. Because the law says if somebody comes in between the ports of entry, they shall be detained and shall be deported. But that's the catch and release that's going on now is a violation of that law, and it's being done in mass. And again, I go back to the impeachment says, I think, 45,000 unaccompanied minors, but I heard other numbers as high as 85,000. Imagine that. These are kids, 6, 7, 8, 10 years old that are released and they don't know where they are. And why is there no outrage? If Donald Trump released 3 people into this country that were unaccompanied minors, they're stuck. If you go to the Homeland Security website right now, go type in, Homeland Security and go to their website. They talk about it's Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Oh. They're the most complicit people in human trafficking that there is right now because they are literally taking the work of the cartels and getting these poor young women and boys to who knows what. And if you talk to the Border Patrol, the thousands of people that are raped coming across that border, Alejandro Mayorkas is in charge of it, and he's not doing his job, and he needs to be removed.
He's not doing his job. And then you have Republicans in the Senate trying, like Lankford, which we just heard from, trying to codify 5,000 illegal immigrants per day, which goes to show what hope is there if this even passes the House, the impeachment, and gets to the Senate.
We have an election coming up, though, so Republicans who are unhappy with their representation immigration.
Right.
Immigration should be the #1 issue. Remember that. We have the power.
Well, polling is showing that it's becoming that.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.